Hello everyone, Just Podcast TV is here. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified on new contents.
Episode 123, The Startup. After James transferred the $5 million performance bonus to Mitchell, he told Krista, Vanessa, and Katie that he was going out for a while. What he didn't tell them was that he was going to see Sebastian and Henry Riccotto. The money landing in his account was the moment he had been waiting for. Over the last few days, he had already planned everything in his mind. He was going to start another company on Blaha Island. The purpose of this company, however, was not to turn a profit. It was only to provide jobs for the unemployed, specifically the Riccottos and their men. As long as they had a way to make a decent living, then they would not continue to extort money from honest business owners. This in turn would eliminate conflicts between the two groups. This way, after he left, the island would truly be at peace. James took out his phone and called Mahmoud as he walked out of the hotel. "Could you please come with me to do something?" he asked. "I'm on my way," Mahmoud replied. He was there in less than 10 minutes. "Mr. Fasim," James said, "take me to see Mr. Riccotto and his son, please." Mahmoud was taken aback. "Why are you looking for them?" James didn't explain much. "Let's go," he said. "You'll see when we get there." Mahmoud didn't ask any more questions. He could only lead the way full of worry and doubt. Not long after, they arrived at a small, luxurious house. There were 2 guards standing out in front. When they saw Mahmoud, they looked at him with fierce eyes as if they were going to beat him up. But when they saw James following behind, they immediately backed away. One of the guards gathered his courage and asked, "What do you guys want?" James stepped forward. "Tell your boss to come out," he demanded. His voice was calm, but it was filled with authority. The 2 guards didn't dare ask any more questions. They hurried into the mansion and reported to their boss. Soon, a large group of men poured out of the house, followed by Henry Riccotto and his father. Although they had the advantage in numbers, when they heard that James was outside, they acted as if they were facing a brigade of the Madagascar People's Armed Forces. Sebastian's broken arm had been set at the hospital. It rested in front of his chest in a cast and sling. His expression was calm, but his heart was full of fear. When they were face to face, he forced a tough expression and said, "What are you doing here?" James let out a wild laugh. "Is this the way you treat your guests? With insolent questions?" His demonic laughter frightened the crew of toughs. Sebastian was a man of the underworld, and he understood its codes and rules. It wouldn't be good for him to kill James outright, but did he dare invite him in? What if this freak started single-handedly killing everyone in the house? Seeing his hesitant face, James said, "Come on. You are one of the 3 big bosses of Blaha Island. Don't you even have the guts to treat me to a cup of coffee while we talk?" So, Sebastian thought, he was not here to kill them all. It was something else. He quickly analyzed the situation, then put on a smile and said respectfully, "Please, come inside." James looked at the crime boss and nodded. Then he walked out into the mansion with Mahmoud. The brief parley between the 2 men dumbfounded Henry and his crew. They didn't understand what was going through Sebastian's head. Even the way he addressed James had changed, but they just quietly followed them into the house. Sebastian led his guests into a well-appointed study. He indicated 2 chairs for them to sit in and took a seat behind the large desk. "So," he said, "naturally I wonder why you have come to visit today." His attitude had completely changed. He was respectful and open to discussion, seeming to have forgiven James for breaking his arm. When James saw that this was a person who could see the situation clearly, he was pleased. No wonder this guy was the boss. He had brains. In fact, James knew that some people entered a life of crime, not necessarily because of their bad nature, but because life circumstances had forced them to walk the wrong path in order to survive. James speculated that Sebastian Riccotto was probably that kind of person. "Sir, it's clear you're a smart person," he said. "Today I bring to you a good thing." "A good thing," Sebastian echoed. "What good thing can I get from you?" Standing quietly in a corner, Henry heaved a sigh of relief when he heard what James said. He knew he wasn't here to look for trouble. He really came to talk. James had analyzed the situation and developed a psychological profile of the man sitting across from him. Sebastian was a man with an extremely bad reputation on Blaha Island, but underneath all of the crime boss bluster, he was not a confident man. However, here was someone more powerful than him who had come to talk to him in a respectful way. It may have been the first time in his life he had encountered such a person. James played his trump card. I'm going to invest in the biggest electric tuk-tuk taxi operation on Blaha Island. He looked at Sebastian but did not continue. It was an intriguing proclamation. Even Henry and Mahmoud wanted to hear more about it, but James remained silent. Seeing that he wasn't going to continue, Sebastian congratulated him, then looked at him with a frown.
So what does this have to do with me?
He asked. James was waiting for this opening. He looked at him in the eyes and said, "Because I want to hire you to be the manager." Sebastian was shocked.
What? Me? The manager?
The room went silent while he processed the offer. On the one hand, he felt that going from being a powerful crime boss to the manager of a tuk-tuk taxi company would be a disgrace. On the other hand, he was tired of the lifestyle he'd created for himself. Over all the years, he had done nothing with his life other than take protection fees by force from cowering merchants. And now they weren't cowering any longer. Mahmoud, who had been silent all this time, couldn't believe what he just heard.
Sir, he said, isn't this a little sudden?
Henry thought the world had gone crazy. Not even a week ago, his father had been pointing a gun at this guy who in turn broke his father's arm. How could neither of them hold a grudge? Now that he had everyone's undivided attention, James carried on. No, it is not sudden. And yes, I want to hire you to be the manager of the shop. I'll provide you with $2 million in seed money to start the business, but I'll leave the rest to you to handle and operate. To the current James, $2 million was an extremely small amount of money. But to Sebastian Ricoto on Madagascar's Blaha Island, it was more money he had ever made at one time in his entire life. Episode 124, The Negotiation. As soon as James' voice faded, the entire room went silent. $2 million was indeed a fortune for all of them, and that was only the seed money. Later, the business would need further investment. James ignored their shock and gave them a little time to digest his offer. Then he said, "Oh, by the way, I envision your crew members becoming your staff. In short, you will be in charge of the development of the shop. I don't care about the process, I only care about the results. When it's up and running, I'll give you 30% of the profits as your salary." Even though he was trying his best to hide his excitement, Sebastian Ricoto's eyes betrayed him. He almost smiled. As a local of Blaha Island, he naturally knew that in this era of global tourism and environmental consciousness, an e-taxi company had a bright future, as the island was a famous tourist attraction for people who wanted to experience nature. In fact, he had thought about getting in on this industry before, but he never had enough capital. He'd even picked out a name for it, the Little Lightning Motor Taxi Company. Now with the money from James, he could open and run the largest and best electric taxi business on the island. He could envision his beautiful future before him. Seeing him thinking about it, the smile on his face barely contained, James asked, "So are you willing to become the manager of this enterprise?"
I am very willing,
Sebastian replied without hesitation. At this moment, he no longer cared about his reputation as a feared crime boss. He was excited just thinking about his new life, and was also a bit overwhelmed by James's offer. As the saying goes, James thought, money changes everything. Suddenly, Mahmoud stood up. This was all too hasty for him. He had not expected that James would make such a deal with Ricoto.
Boss, you can't, he said. You would hand so much money to such an unreliable person? He's not worthy of your trust.
James put a stop to him with a wave of his hand. Then he looked at Sebastian and said, "I have just one condition." The gangster grew slightly suspicious at that moment.
Tell me, he said. What is your condition?
The condition is that from this point forward, you can no longer take protection fees from local businesses. Sebastian nodded. He'd already made up his mind that crime was a thing of the past for him. He wanted to come out of this field of crime and wanted a normal life for his family.
I agree to your condition,
he said firmly. Worried that James didn't believe him, Sebastian placed his hand on his chest and said sincerely,
You don't know why I was forced to walk the path of collecting protection fees, but that is of no consequence. Now that I can achieve a better lifestyle, I no longer want to be despised by everyone in the community. So rest assured, from now on, I am willing to serve you wholeheartedly. From now on, I want dignity and a good life for me and my family.
His words were loud and imposing. It was obvious he was sincere. In the space of a single sit-down, James had uncovered another side of Sebastian Riccotto that no one knew about. Obviously, this was an opportunity for him, and he was smart enough to seize it and change his fate forever. At this moment, James's good intentions finally dawned on Mahmoud. His admiration for James grew even more. At this point, he was in awe of this young man's insight. He was still a little worried about how this would play out after so many years of strife with the Riccottos, but he had full faith in his extraordinary new employer. Let's go to the bank, James said. I will transfer the money to your account today. Very soon, they were in Sebastian's emerald green Range Rover on the way to the bank to settle the transfer. The procedure went smoothly, and Sebastian was also a man of action. After he got the money, he started to act that very afternoon. First order of business, find a location. His goal was to open the new shop before James left Blaha Island. He desperately wanted his new boss to attend the opening ceremony, so as to show his loyalty and dedication for his new employer. 5 days later, James received the new passports and visas from the staff at East Ocean Maritime. With that, it was time for them to leave Blaha Island. Early the next morning, James, Krista, Katie, and Vanessa packed their things. While they were waiting in the lobby for their ride to the marina, Sebastian walked into the Masodero Hotel in a hurry. Despite all they'd heard about this guy turning over a new leaf, the women were instantly uneasy in his presence. He couldn't erase his innate sense of menace after only a few days of his supposed new life. He had expected this and turned a blind eye to it. James just smiled. He suspected he knew why Sebastian was here.
Everything has been arranged,
Sebastian said.
I know you are in a hurry to leave, but can you please attend the ribbon-cutting ceremony first?
The three women were even more confused when they saw Sebastian's respectful attitude towards James. How had things changed so quickly? We'd be honored to come and participate, James said. He turned to the ladies and said, He really has changed. You'll understand when we get there. The location Sebastian had located for the electric taxi shop was not bad at all. It was close to a large waterfront area that attracted a lot of tourists. Business in the future here would definitely be good. From afar, the name of the shop was difficult to make out. As they got closer, the words on the sign came into view. It read, James Tucker E-Taxis. Episode 125, Blaha Farewell. It was a lively scene at the dock. Mahmoud, Kaya Koza, Sebastian and Henry Riccotto, Anja, and all the local shop owners had come to see James and the ladies off. Mahmoud spoke for the group.
You must come to Madagascar whenever you have time, he said,
tears forming in his eyes.
The people of Blaha Island will always welcome you.
This man had been a rock all his life, but at this moment he had to admit he was sad. James had done so much for him in the short time they were together. James shook his hand warmly and said, Mr. Fasim, it is farewell today for a better reunion tomorrow. Don't worry. I will come as often as I can in the future. He took out a check and handed it to Mahmoud. This is for you. It's a small token of my appreciation for all you've done for me. Mahmoud looked at the amount. He stared in disbelief, then tried to hand it back.
This is, sir, I can't accept this.
James just pushed it back to him. Mr. Fasim, you work for me now, remember? Isn't it proper for the boss to take care of his subordinates?
I am...
Mahmoud was obviously panicking. He did not know what to say. This strong, proud man could no longer hold it in. He burst into tears. It was an extremely touching scene. Vanessa, Krista, and Katie were practically bawling. As James's close companions, they felt his kindness reflected on them as well. Before boarding, James told Sebastian and Henry to work hard and abide by the terms of their agreement. They promised him that not only would they not collect protection fees, they would also take responsibility for the safety and protection of the area. It seemed that their tough reputation had some unexpected benefits. Looking at all his new friends, James felt very gratified. The yacht slowly sailed away from the coast. James, Krista, Katie, and Vanessa stood on the dock and waved back at the people waving at them from the shore. They had stayed there for less than a month, but this place had left them with many unforgettable memories. Although he had told Mahmoud he would come back often, in fact, he knew that the chances of him returning to Blaha Island in this lifetime were slim. The yacht went further out to sea, and the people on the dock gradually faded into small dots until they disappeared. After tidying up his emotions, James proceeded to the captain's chair and confirmed their next destination, Vadamandri. Once the course was set, he took out his phone and called Durham Raharisan, the son of the president of the Vadamandri Sapphire Company. Durham answered quickly. He was very enthusiastic to hear he'd be seeing James soon. And soon it was. By the time the sun set on the sea, the yacht had arrived at Vadamandri. James confirmed with Stephen Leland of East Ocean Maritime that the company's branch in town would have staff waiting at the dock. They indeed were there, and they took possession of the yacht and drove it to the maintenance facility for repairs and resupply. James had just finished handing over the boat when Durham found him. "Hello, Sir Mr. James Tucker, I presume," he said. Durham was about 30 years old. He was tall, almost the same height as James, and quite handsome. He wore a black suit, which made him look gentlemanly amid the tourists and marina workers. "Yes, I am. And you must be Durham." He reached out and they shook hands. "Welcome to Vadamandri," Durham said. "Please follow me to the car. I've arranged the hotel for you." James did not tarry. He led the women to the car and the driver took them straight to the best hotel in Vadamandri. That night, Durham hosted James, Krista, Katie, and Vanessa for dinner at their hotel. He was very warm and hospitable. He paid particular attention to the dishes he ordered for the table, wanting them to experience the best Madagascar had to offer. Apart from ordering the most popular regional foods, Durham also asked the hotel chef to prepare a uniquely American side dish, French fries. It was a small but incredibly thoughtful gesture, improving their already good impression of him. After dinner, he conducted just a touch of business. "James, it's getting late. It's time for you all to get some rest. We can do the corporate handover tomorrow morning." "Sounds good to me," James said, as if corporate handover was the most common thing in the world. However, Vanessa, Katie, and Krista all stared fiercely and began to grill him. "What do you mean? The handover of what company? Are you saying you have another company now?" James just batted away their questions. He especially wanted to keep this one a surprise. James woke early the next morning. He had planned to go downstairs for some exercise, but Durham called and told him he had sent a driver to pick them up. James knocked on the girls' doors, but received immediate pushback. Vanessa said she hadn't woken up yet and would not forgive him if she went out with dark circles under her eyes. This caused Krista and Katie to giggle nonstop until the three of them were finally ready to depart. Their happiness made his heart melt. So did their discretion. The three women seemed to have formed a tacit understanding with James that as long as he did not say anything about this mysterious company of his, they would not take the initiative to ask. With Durham's driver behind the wheel of a sturdy Toyota Land Cruiser, the group arrived at the Vadamandri Sapphire Company. Durham was already there. When he saw them get out of the car, he walked over and shook hands, welcoming them cordially to the town. "I've prepared all the form..." Episode 124. Them cordially to the town. I've prepared all the formalities for the handover, he told James. We will go to the office to sign the contract. This place will soon be yours. He extended his hand and gestured for him to come with him. Oh, okay, James said absentmindedly. In fact, he had not heard a thing Durham had said. Instead, he was thinking about the next check-in. James and Durham walked up to the door, but before they could step inside, a harsh voice suddenly rang out behind him.
Stop right there, Durham.